sat in that particular stillness, the blue light of a screen illuminating the exact second you decided to send one more message. It felt like care, or perhaps persistence, but the male mindset often hides a brutal reality behind the veil of effort. You weren't acting from a place of strength, you were reacting to a tremor of quiet anxiety. Underneath the gesture lay an admission you weren't ready to make, the belief that your value is a performance that must be continuously staged to be believed. We call it reaching, but it is actually the slow surrender of silent power. The dynamic of the relationship didn't shift when she pulled away. It shifted the moment you tried to close a gap that wasn't even there yet. You moved first, and in that movement, you became the only one who had something to lose. Most men confuse the warmth of consistency with the weight of devotion. They move through their days believing that being reliably present, always answering, always appearing, always within reach, serves as a signal of strength and commitment. But there is a harsh truth hidden in that reliability. To the deeper, instinctual mind of another, constant availability does not signal loyalty. It signals a lack of competing demands. It suggests a man with no interior gravity, no world pulling him elsewhere, and no mission that requires his absence. He is there because there is nowhere else for him to be. This is the hidden economy of human attention. We are wired to ignore the air until it becomes thin. And in the same way, the mind rarely registers the value of a resource it does not fear losing. When a man distributes his attention too freely, he inadvertently dilutes its potency. It is a brutal reality of the male mindset. The more accessible you are, the less magnetic you become. This isn't a game of manipulation or a calculated tactic from dark psychology. It is simply
how human value is perceived. Scarcity isn't a trick. It is the boundary that defines where a person begins and where the rest of the world ends. You can see this play out in the subtle habit of over-explanation. Consider the man who justifies his whereabouts, his feelings or his intentions before a single question has been asked. He isn't communicating, he is marketing. He is offering a sales pitch for his own existence to someone who never requested a brochure.
By over-justifying his presence, he inadvertently admits that he believes his presence requires a defense. He has stopped being a participant in the dynamic and has become a solicitor. But observe what happens when that same man finally chooses to exist somewhere else. Not with a theatrical flourish or a calculated silence, but with the quiet autonomy of a person who has business elsewhere. He sits by a window, perhaps not waiting for a notification or watching for a shadow, but simply inhabiting his own time. This shift in the room is immediate. It isn't that interest has been triggered by a trick. It is that he has finally demonstrated that his attention has an edge. It is finite. It does not extend infinitely in all directions, and it is no longer being offered for free. There is a version of him that exists without anyone else at the center of it. Recognizing this is the first step toward reclaiming silent power. When the invitation to explain is met with a calm, brief truth, or when a message is left to breathe in the digital ether, the price of his presence begins to stabilize. The man who is always available has not demonstrated devotion. He has demonstrated that he has no destination, and that is a different thing entirely. Most men locate friction in the external world. They observe a shift in her behavior and conclude she has changed, she has become distant, or she has stopped being the person he first met. While this narrative is often factually accurate, it is almost always incomplete. It treats the distance as a primary event rather than what it actually is, a reaction. What the narrative omits is the signal that was broadcast long before the silence began. And in any dynamic, there is a continuous, invisible transmission.
We call it emotional broadcasting. It has nothing to do with the words you choose or the logic you present. It is governed by the quality of your attention and the micro-tension behind your actions. A man who initiates contact from a place of wholeness transmits a frequency of stability. A man who initiates from a place of quiet anxiety transmits a frequency of debt. Even if the words are identical, the weight is not. This is a harsh truth of the male mindset. People do not respond to what you say. They respond to the energy that necessitated the speaking. The brutal reality is that she likely couldn't articulate exactly what shifted. She simply felt a change in the gravity of the interaction. Your reach became too careful. Your presence became too loaded. What was once a natural exchange of energy became a strategic operation. Strategy, even when it remains invisible to the eye, has a psychological weight that the other person feels instinctively. They sense they are being managed rather than met. Consider a moment you've likely lived. Sending a message and find yourself checking your phone exactly 11 minutes later. You didn't check because you expected a reply that quickly. You checked because you needed to confirm that your emotional security was still intact.
You weren't communicating, you were conducting surveillance on your own value. This is the hallmark of a man who has lost his silent power. He is no longer sending a message to share a thought. He is sending a hook to catch a reassurance. The withdrawal she exhibited was not necessarily a cold calculation or a move from a dark psychology playbook. More often, it is a reflexive pullback from an overwhelming frequency. When a man is perpetually waiting for a reaction, he is never truly present. He is always one step ahead, anticipating the outcome, and that anticipation creates a static that makes genuine connection impossible. The shift occurs only when the anxious signal stops. When you finally cease the broadcast of need, the atmosphere of every interaction changes. This isn't about becoming mysterious or playing a game of mirrors. It is about becoming genuinely present for the first time. You are no longer reaching out to fill a void in yourself. You are simply existing. The distance you've been feeling was not authored by her. It was a response to the invisible frequency you were projecting. He was not ignored because she stopped caring. He was ignored because every time he reached, she could feel that his hand was shaking.
There are two types of silence, and while they look identical from the outside, they occupy opposite ends of the psychological spectrum. The first is deliberate distance, the man who ignores a message because he's heard that indifference is a tool of dark psychology to manufacture attraction. He is performing a role, holding his breath and watching the clock to see if his absence is working. The second is natural absence, the man who is simply, genuinely elsewhere. His silence isn't a signal he is sending. It is the quiet byproduct of a man who has found a mission that outweighs his distractions. The first kind of withdrawal is felt almost immediately. It has a theatrical quality to it. Even if he doesn't speak, the air around him is thick with the expectation of a reaction. Because he is still emotionally tethered, his silence is just another form of shouting. She will feel the watching, even through the digital void. This is the brutal reality most men refuse to face. If you are checking your phone to see if your silence worked, you haven't withdrawn at all. You have merely relocated your anxiety. The second kind of withdrawal is the only one that shifts the landscape of a relationship. It isn't a strategy, it is a consequence. When a man is building a career, disciplining his body, or pursuing a vision that demands his full attention, he doesn't have to calculate his response time. He is genuinely occupied. This creates a specific kind of silent power. When a man like this finally re-enters the room, he carries a different gravity. He isn't seeking permission to exist. He is returning from a world he built himself. This brings us to a question that governs the male mindset, one that is uncomfortable to answer. Which man are you right now? Are you choosing silence to see what she does, or are you silent because you are genuinely absorbed in something greater? If you are honest, the answer might unsettle you. Most men who attempt to use distance as a tactic are still internally fixated. They haven't let go. They just changed the direction of their gaze, from her face to the void where her response should be.
The harsh truth is that you cannot manufacture true detachment. You can't fake the weight of a man who has somewhere else to be. What changes a dynamic permanently isn't the act of ignoring someone. It is becoming the kind of man for whom ignoring distractions is a natural symptom of his own existence. It is the shift from being a spectator of her life to being the architect of your own. In the end, the difference is unmistakable. The man performing distance is still waiting, his eyes fixed on a screen. But the man who has actually left, who has truly found a purpose that demands his silence is the only one she cannot stop thinking about.
This lesson begins where the others end, with the man who has finally done it. He has built genuine detachment. He has cultivated a life with enough real weight that his silence is no longer a tactic, but a fact. When he walks back into a room, he carries a calm that others cannot explain, a silent power that feels like a fortress. But here's the harsh truth. No one tells him he has not necessarily found peace. He has found distance. And in the quiet of his own mind, he is beginning to realize there is a profound difference between the two. The inversion most men miss is that emotional self-sufficiency comes with a hidden tax. As you internalize the male mindset of total independence, you may discover that intimacy has become difficult, not because you cannot attract it, but because you have become so accustomed to your own interior equilibrium. Another person's emotional weather no longer feels like a connection. It feels like interference. You have traded the chaos of neediness for a steady, sterile numbness. This is the blind spot in the pursuit of emotional discipline. The framework is designed to optimize for one thing, not being controlled. It teaches you how to ensure no one can rattle you, but it fails to mention what happens when you are no longer vulnerable enough to be moved. The brutal reality is that the man who cannot be shaken
by her absence may eventually find he is no longer stirred by her presence. He has spent years securing the territory of his own soul, only to find the landscape is empty. Consider a man who once burned with a desire that felt like a fever. He has now cultivated such interior stillness that a woman who would have devastated him 2 years ago now provokes nothing. He stands before her, and the fire is out. Rather than feeling like the ultimate freedom, it feels, in the rare, honest moments, like a form of quiet grief. He got exactly what he wanted. He changed. He is no longer that man. And something in him knows that what he lost was not just the wound. It was the capacity for a particular kind of aliveness. This isn't about dark psychology or winning a game of power. It is about the cost of the armor we choose to wear. The philosophical realization most men reach too late is that the goal was never to become unreachable. The goal was to become whole enough that being reached feels like a choice, rather than a collapse. Most men are building toward the first state while convinced they are building toward the second. The distance you've created protects you, but it also defines the limits of your world. Some men become so good at not needing her that they forget they ever wanted anything at all.
They call this strength. Occasionally at night, they wonder if it has another name. The silence in the room remains unchanged, yet the weight within it has shifted. Most men believe they are witnessing a transformation in someone else, that the distance closing or expanding is a result of their mastery over dark psychology. But the brutal reality is that the external dynamic was always a ghost. What truly shifted was the frequency of your own interior. This was never a journey toward influencing another. It was a slow, deliberate reconstruction of the male mindset. You've practiced restraint and cultivated a quiet authority. But a harsh truth remains. Is the identity you've built a foundation to stand upon, or merely a wall you've constructed inward?
You are no longer the man who began this video. The question is no longer who you want to be, but who you have already become in the stillness.